crisp October air carried a sinister chill as the moon hid behind a shroud of thick, dark clouds. Halloween was approaching, and for the small town of Willowbrook, that meant spooky tales and ghostly legends took center stage. None, however, could rival the terrifying events that unfolded one fateful night. Jake, an ordinary pizza delivery guy, found himself tangled in a web of horror that would change his life forever. He had grown used to the late-night deliveries, navigating dimly lit streets, but that chilly Halloween night was different. An order had come in, but the delivery location was strange. A secluded, abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town, ignoring the unsettling feeling gnawing at him. Jake hopped into his old, rusty delivery car and set out on the winding, desolate road. The mansion, known as the Devereaux House, was infamous in Willowbrook, and its dark history only fueled the rumors of hauntings and unspeakable horrors that took place within its walls. As Jake approached the mansion, he couldn't help but shudder. The Devereaux House was a looming, decaying monstrosity framed by overgrown trees that cast eerie shadows on its weathered exterior. The dilapidated ornate gates creaked open, and he pulled into the overgrown driveway, his headlights cutting through the enveloping darkness. A flickering porch light was the only sign of life, and it cast a haunting glow across the cobweb-laden front porch. Jake took a deep breath, grabbed the pizza box, and made his way to the front door, each step echoing in the silence of the night. He rang the doorbell, and the sound reverberated through the mansion, sending a chill down his spine. Moments later, the door creaked open, revealing a woman dressed in a tattered, antiquated gown. Her ghostly pallor and sunken eyes sent shivers down Jake's spine, but he managed to muster a weak smile. "Good evening, ma'am. I've got your pizza," he stammered. The woman's voice was like a whisper. "Please, come in." Jake hesitated, but reluctantly stepped into the dimly lit entrance hall. As the door closed behind him, a sense of unease washed over him. The mansion's interior was even more unsettling than its exterior. Dust and decay were evident everywhere, and portraits of the mansion's former residents, their eyes following him, lined the walls. The woman led Jake down a long, dim corridor to a room at the end. She motioned for him to enter, her gaze unrelenting. The room, which was lit by a few flickering candles, held a massive dining table covered in an assortment of rotting foods. Jake's heart raced as he placed the pizza on the table. "That will be $20.95. The woman ignored his request, her gaze locked on a spot just behind him. Suddenly, Jake felt a cold breath on his neck and heard a sinister whisper, "Leave, or you'll never leave." Turning around, he was met with the sight of a ghastly figure, a man in a tattered suit with a sinister, ghoul-like grin. He recoiled, stumbling backward. Fearfully, he demanded, "Who are you? What do you want?" The man's hollow laughter echoed through the room. "You delivered the pizza. Now you're our guest." Jake's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the woman and the ghoul-like figure approach. He tried to make a run for it, but as he reached the door, it slammed shut with a deafening thud. Panic set in as Jake realized he was trapped in this nightmarish mansion. The woman and the ghoul advanced, their forms shifting as they grew more menacing. In desperation, he fumbled for his phone, but it had no signal, and the battery was almost dead. The ghoul spoke with a chilling, otherworldly tone. "You see, you're here for a purpose, and that purpose is to join us." Jake couldn't comprehend what was happening, but he knew he needed to escape. He made a dash for the window, shattering it and landing outside on the overgrown lawn. The cold night air filled his lungs as he sprinted towards the gate, but it seemed to move farther away with each step. Every time he looked back, the mansion loomed closer, as if it was pulling him back in. The night was endless, and Jake ran through a surreal landscape of shadowy trees and haunting whispers, unable to escape the clutches of the Devereux house. Hours turned into eternity, and he was ultimately drawn back to the mansion's entrance. The woman and the ghoul were waiting, and with malevolent smiles, they closed in on him. Jake could feel his sanity slipping away, and he realized there was no escape. As they reached for him, he screamed, but his cries were swallowed by the eternal darkness. The next morning, the sun rose over Willowbrook, and the Devereux house stood silent and menacing, as it always had. Jake's disappearance remained a mystery, but the people of Willowbrook knew better than to wander near the mansion, their imaginations running wild with terrifying tales of the Halloween night that had claimed one unfortunate pizza delivery guy.